All right, then, folks. Finally, it's a trio on the Inside Line F1 podcast. All three of us are back. This reminds me a lot of McLaren from 2005, De La Rosa, Montoya, and Raikkonen all together in the same team. Everyone's all together. I know I'm the Montoya here, so you guys need to figure out who the other two are. Clearly. Welcome back, though, Sundaram. Welcome back. So good to have you back, man.
I think I'll be the one. I'll be De La Rosa because I keep popping in and out. So I'm happy taking De La Rosa's role. But he did pretty well that
You
season.
did well.
I remember he did top a lot of practice sessions whenever he was in the car. So it's good to be back, full house once again.
And your feedback, always valued.
Yes.
I guess by default I become the Raikkonen, which makes the girls in my life happy because Mithila's favorite driver is Raikkonen. So Antara is always like, Papa, where's Kimi? But that also means that Sundaram's going to have the longest career in Formula One of all of us. He's still going strong, isn't he, Pedro De La Rosa, with all the teams that he's moved along with Fernando Alonso?
Yeah, just don't go to HRT, Sundaram, please. Like, if you're De La Rosa now, I'm just giving you some future advice. Just don't go to HRT,
My
please.
loyalty is with Green. Don't worry.
And didn't Green get a podium in Baku in 2021? Wasn't Sebastian Vettel on the podium that year?
A milestone race for Aston Martin, their very first podium in Formula One, and sadly Seb's last podium in Formula One as well.
I don't know if I
Yeah.
classify that as a good moment or a weird moment because Baku's had several weird moments, right?
Yeah, where do we begin, guys? Like, I can already think of Vettel and Hamilton, 2017,
Brake
when
testing.
brake testing, and that race, Hamilton's headrest popped out, so he had to go to the pit lane to fix it.
There's also for Fernando Alonso. I think he had three wheels knocked out and he was still driving back to the pits, right? This was the McLaren Honda days, right?
2018, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you consider Ricardo and Verstappen, the accident they had, as a weird moment or no. It was probably weird because Verstappen was not the one who was blamed wholly for that moment. That's probably the weird part.
Oh, did we also have the photographers almost being knocked out by Esteban Ocon in the pit lane on the last lap of the race? That is also here. Wasn't it
Yes.
last year
I think it
or
was
the year
last
before?
year or the
Yeah,
year
it
before.
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the promoters got a notice from race control. So race control is always aware. What else have we got? We've had last year Sainz and Perez. I think we were all split decision on whose fault it was. So that was another weird moment. Baku's given us several others. I think the other weird moment was, and maybe it was a good weird, was Lance Stroll, first podium, second youngest podium sitter in that Williams, but pipped to the line. He was second, but pipped to the line, by Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes,
For
just
his
like that.
teammate for 1 month. For his teammate for 1 month. Like,
Yes.
remember, it was announced that Stroll and Bottas are going to be in the car for next year, and then Bottas was stolen away by Mercedes. And that very year, he stole away Lance Stroll's P2.
Yeah.
Not bad.
But he still
And
he still has his record. He is still Formula One's youngest rookie driver. So don't forget that. Max Verstappen might be the youngest all-time driver, but Lance Stroll is Formula One's youngest rookie till date.
and
To
second
be on the podium.
youngest, second youngest
Uh,
on the podium, right? And talking of Bottas, he also registered that 378 kilometers per hour, highest, fastest speed trap in racing conditions for an F1 car, right?
and then also lost out on a podium because of a puncture. And then Max also lost out on a win in the same race because of a puncture for himself. And he was wearing Liam Lawson's boots when he was kicking the car in anger.
I love these weird moments. We should do this for every circuit. Then
Oh no!
comes the magic button.
The
Yeah.
magic button, the
Ma-
chaotic 2021 race, lots happening there. Max Verstappen's tire blowing out, the infamous brake magic situation. One thing we're actually forgetting is duct tape. Baku 2022, Yuki Tsunoda's rear wing was damaged,
Ah,
structurally compromised, and he comes into the pits, and everyone's thinking, sure, they're going to be retiring the car, but they actually bring out the whole household silver duct tape, nicely wrap it around the rear wing, and send him out once again. So that actually made me think, okay, that's weird.
Was Kimi Raikkonen's gloves and steering moment also in
here.
Azerbaijan?
Yeah,
Yes.
Here
yeah.
itself. Yes.
Something very interesting. So we, of course, have seen that gloves and steering wheel, Kimi screaming on the radio several times. But something that caught my notice, which I finally got an answer on, is typically the steering wheel has a PTT or a push to talk or a radio or a pit button. So you press that and then you speak to your pit wall, right? But that time, Kimi Raikkonen didn't have a steering wheel because he was actually saying, right, hey, gloves and steering wheel. So how did he speak to the radio? Was it F1 just putting over some radio messages for fun, or did he actually speak to his pit wall? Now, this is where Craig Scarborough, who's been a guest on our show, is very popularly known as Scarbs Tech, told us that there is a secondary radio button in the cockpit, and that's what Kimi Raikkonen had used for that weird moment. So, a weird F1 fact of how tech works for that weird moment as well.
Amazing. There's also Leclerc saying, I am stupid when he hit the wall, which many will believe, but not in the case of his crash, but in the case of his contract renewal. More on that later. He
He
was
hit the
also,
wall 2 times, right?
he
Same
was
place.
castled.
Yeah, the weird part is making the same mistake 2 times. But anyway, that's just Leclerc things, I
Yeah,
guess.
don't sign two contract extensions with Ferrari. That's the one thing. But the weirdest moment of them all was when the Baku Street Circuit wanted to make a broke and underperforming Formula One team even more broke and underperforming. George Russell's car was damaged by a manhole cover in 2019. This was when Williams were in their toothpaste era, sponsored by Rocket, extremely slow. They were literally on the back of the grid all the time, finishing 30, 45 seconds behind. Only two cars at the back. And a manhole cover smacked their car down the center, broke the floor off, and FP1 was cancelled. Now, mind you, it's the same year that Williams were late to testing because they couldn't even build their car completely. So imagine the knock on effect. But it only gets worse because once the car was broken down by the manhole cover, it was placed very nicely on a truck to be taken back to the pit lane, as usual. The truck operator forgot that there is a bridge that's actually lower than the height of the crane on the truck. And so the truck hit the crane, and the oils from the crane, the hydraulic oils from the crane, spilled over Williams' car, and they couldn't work on it till FP2.
Doesn't get
Wow.
weirder than that. But they actually did get paid back for their damages, if I remember correctly. I think there was some sort of legal case for this as well. But the Baku circuit did send flowers back to Williams to kind of say sorry for it. And later on, they did pay for the damages through an insurance and whatnot. But we've seen manholes turn up in Formula One quite a few times, Las Vegas, Malaysia, and everyone's always asked the same question: why should we bear the expenses for this? But there might be a new precedent for this right now.
Yeah, three men talking
Could
about
manholes
manholes.
come into play this weekend as well? Again, it's Baku, street race, all of that. And we'll hear all the signs of how manhole covers are drilled even further, made stronger to the ground so that the suction power of the Formula One cars doesn't rip them apart and so on. But
What?
it is, yeah, that's true because there is a lot of suction, of course, as we know, even more so with these cars under tray effect or whatever, that's why the chassis of the car and the floor of the car is generating all the downforce. So will the downforce, or in the previous eras used to also be the downforce, was strong enough to just rip the manhole covers open, and that's where the problems used to lie. So they actually drill down, they further cement those covers, and I don't mean they use cement, but they make sure that the manhole covers are reinforced in the ground. At least that's what I definitely remember over all these years of talking Formula One.
God bless the men whose manhole covers are drilled down. Seriously, it is. You just need to look at Formula One with a slightly tilted mind, and then all of this seems hilarious. But speaking of hilarity, if that is a word, Leclerc, I've got a question for you guys. Charles Leclerc, he's got four pole positions in Baku, but he's got no wins. Does that make him the most successful driver at Baku or the most unsuccessful driver at Baku? What do you feel, Sundaram?
See, that's the thing with Charles Leclerc, right? He has these weird records to his name and weird streaks at these places. Actually, he's nearing the top of a record that says the driver with the most wins of another driver's poles is also going to be Charles Leclerc very soon if Max Verstappen takes a few wins of Leclerc's poles. But that's the thing. Baku is a weird circuit. You have Charles Leclerc with 4 wins, Charles Leclerc with 4 poles, and Sergio Perez with 2 wins. It's not a circuit that's adorned by the greats of the sport. No Hamilton, no Vettel, none of those sort. And you have Charles Leclerc on a streak of 4 poles, 5 if you actually count the sprint as well. But then no wins to go with that. And it's a little weird to say that, but to be very honest, being very optimistic, this might be a weekend where Ferrari could be very strong. Even Charles said this in his own admission. Baku could be one of those tracks where Ferrari could be strong.
Interesting. could be strong. I think I personally believe Ferrari needs to just extract more performance, and these unfortunate stats that are attached to Leclerc about most pole positions without a world championship, so many seasons at Ferrari without a world championship, etc., are a lot down to team execution. And Leclerc is a great example of, is it the car, is it the driver, is it actually the team that needs to fire all cylinders? And this is an example of where the team actually needs to fire on all cylinders. In Leclerc's case, I believe on Saturdays he is definitely one of the fastest people out there. And Samuel, you and I did this thing of why Fernando Alonso and Leclerc were the two most chosen
Yeah.
drivers by Max Verstappen when it came to several racing parameters when Max made his ultimate driver on the current grid. So let's see how Ferrari go. I hope they execute a racing weekend well enough, and I would love to see Ferrari actually score a win. It's such a strange stat. They're second in the constructors championship, but have not scored a win, while Red Bull, who's fourth, and Mercedes, who's third, actually have scored a win. So although I would love to see them finish second without scoring a win, because that will be another pub quiz question for us in the future.
That'll be haram ball. Is a term we use in football. So to explain haram ball, it's basically football that's played without any hint of artisticness or any flair, just purely done for results' sake. So finishing second in the season without a race, it's not I won't take that. But Leclerc has a real advantage here, and this is something that Carlos Sainz revealed last year when he said that Leclerc is excellent at turning the car into 90-degree corners. He's just got a great feel for when to let off the brakes and when to accelerate on. Now, as simple as it sounds, there's a great skill in turning around the car and making sure that you can make it attack the apex of a corner very well. Baku has a ton of 90-degree corners, particularly in the first sector, and that's where Leclerc is really good. So watch out for him. But this then brings up a question that our beloved listener Kulkarni Chief has put out, which is, let's talk about combat. Are we going to see Seb versus Alonso versus Hamilton type battles? Because that's what we saw last year, guys, with Piastri versus Leclerc. And that, in my opinion, one of the best races of the new Formula One regulations. What an incredible battle, wasn't it?
Yeah, especially I remember the slow-mo of them exiting the last corner, going, Baku drift, if not Tokyo drift. And it was for me as a driver, what's most beautiful is Piastri's had that, moment. And Leclerc was so focused on chasing him and keeping that gap, driving into the long straight with DRS, that he had a similar moment. And both of them were like, synchronously drifting out there. But I think Baku in general has given us lots of entertainment, whether it was Ricardo's three-car overtake, whether it's, Kevin Magnussen pulling off overtakes, whether it's a lot of 90-degree corners catching out some of the drivers, on the side pods, hitting the walls. So I think we can already say well done, Baku, even before this race, this weekend's race that happens, because Baku always entertains.
Yeah, I suppose Baku is the perfect place for combat, isn't it, Sundaram? If the F1 movie had to be shot somewhere, I would honestly say Baku. This is the home of combat.
Yeah, it is. And I actually very distinctly remember when this circuit first came up on the calendar. Looking at the layout, I wasn't very pleased with the way it kind of flows. The first few corners, all 90-degree corners, but once you actually saw them racing, I mean, the first season everyone was very slow and kept it very, what do you say, cautious in the first race. That's why you didn't see a lot of incidents. But 2017 onwards, it's been chaotic, if that's the right word to put it. Chaotic, lots of overtakes, lots of head scratching to decide what setup are we going. Are we going to go with high downforce, low downforce? And the interesting thing is, you have the opening straight where you have places where cars can go 3 or 4 wide, and then you have the castle section where it's barely 7 meters wide. You can barely fit one car in through that little gap. So it's a very interesting layout, very interesting track, very interesting characteristics, and it always does deliver, Baku.
And if I can just add, the fact that Baku has, given us so much entertainment at the front, in the midfield, in the back end as well, just goes to prove that there are certain circuits which really have these characteristics in them. Long high-speed straights with corners that bring cars closer together, and then they, are fighting pretty much on the straight. So that's one thing. But a question to you guys: Baku traditionally is this what Sundaram explained, lower downforce versus higher downforce. The lower downforce takes you faster on the straights, but to go faster through the Mickey Mouse castle stuff, you need a little more downforce. So the teams will be doing their typical trade-offs. Now, we saw in Monza that at the lowest downforce setting that they could get, the Red Bull was the most aero-efficient car, and then Max Verstappen was on his league in a league of his own. Do you guys believe that Max will continue down that road? Will McLaren
Yes.
continue to be chat? I love that. And imagine Ferrari is also in that battle. Do you guys believe it could be a three-way fight? And could we have three different cars on the podium?
That's exactly what Sadhna is asking. She's asking, will Baku be good to the front runners only? And at this point, we know very clearly there are two major front runners. I say front runners because front row, McLaren, Oscar and Lando. And I genuinely believe this will be a Max Verstappen circuit. As for all the reasons that Kunal mentioned, long straights, the Red Bull is great in the hands of Max Verstappen at a place where they've got to run low downforce. So, for instance, Silverstone, Baku, Suzuka, you saw that where generally the circuit is sort of more on corner speeds and lots of quick corners, and then Max can just manage it out with a slightly lower downforce setup because he's Max Verstappen and he's got that great feel for his race car. I think that'll come up handy. That will certainly be important for qualifying. But then the race, Sundaram, the race is a completely different story here because nothing is ever for certain in Baku. Like turn number one, Max could well have a good start, but there's a possibility for two cars to come down his inside line at turn one, and then so much possibility for slipstreaming as well later on. So it's really hard to tell with certainty who will win. But I'm sure that this is more of a Max circuit than a traditional McLaren one. Like I suppose they'll have to play it conservative, won't they?
I think there's something about Baku that really caters to even the top four teams. If, like you already explained, that Red Bull can be quite quick around Baku. They're very aero efficient. McLaren, on the flip side, they usually tend to have a lot of drag. So whenever they go to these sort of circuits where there are long straights, they're usually disadvantaged to a certain extent. But what works in McLaren's favor is Baku is a long circuit. Even there's lot less wear and lot less tire degradation. It's a long six kilometer circuit, and they're also having they've even gone softer in terms of tire compound, so they're
Yeah.
really able to manage their tires better than other teams. Ferrari in that respect, they would usually go much more lower in terms of ride height to find performance, which is also why Charles Leclerc feels they could be strong in Baku. Then generally Baku has lower temperatures, not in the mid 30s or high 30s. So Mercedes, if they still have that characteristic of doing well around circuits with cooler temperatures, even they could kind of spoil the whole party. So there's a little bit of everything for every team, and like we already explained, there's so much in terms of characteristics with that very tight and twisty sector 3, and then you have sector 1, which is completely flat out, 2.2 kilometers, which extends from turn 16 up until turn 1, is actually 200 meters longer than the end of La Source till the end of Kemmel Strait in Spa. So this is going to be the longest
Wow.
flat out section that we have in Formula One. So the engines are going to be pushed to the tilt this weekend.
That's a third of the circuit on the long straights and one single long straight, fast sweeping. And what about the bumps? Because if it's still as bumpy as it's typically been, I'd love to see Ferrari having figured out how to handle their cars over the bumps. Because this year, what's really bothered them is the bumps on the circuit. But McLaren can clinch the Constructors Championship if they finish 1-2. I'll be very surprised if they get a 1-2 in Baku. And like Sundaram said, if the temperatures come into play, then the McLarens will be much stronger, given that they are managing rear tire temperatures better than anyone else. But if not, I definitely see a three-team battle. But if they score a 1-2, they score 9 points more than any other team. They become Constructors Champions of 2025. They will be what we call it, the back-to-back champions. And I would say that this is the fastest any team would have finished the World Championship by winning it with 7 races to go. And to me, what I'm excited about, guys, is if McLaren is actually able to get to the 1,000 points barrier. No team has ever done that, but also no team that has dominated has had two drivers scoring points, within the top three points finishing position. So if Lando and Oscar maximize each race weekend and keep continuing to score the bulk of the points, I would love to see McLaren at 1,000 points. But having said that, will we see papaya rules or will we see papaya mess come into play? And I'm eager to see how Oscar Piastri responds because he's been very cool in the media saying, I'm not going to jeopardize his title win with the risk of, messing up the future, etc., which sounds great for PR purposes. But I'm hoping he and Mark Webber have gone and banged their heads on the table and fists on the table saying, guys, what the hell was that? Because he would have had, week 10 days to think about what happened in Monza. And I'm yet to find someone who feels that what happened in Monza was fair to Oscar Piastri. Was it fair from a team's point of view? Maybe yes, but was it fair to Oscar Piastri? And then in my mind goes back to Silverstone, where he asked for that, reversal on track when he was given that unfair penalty under the safety car, and McLaren, of course, didn't respond. So I'd love to see Oscar Piastri's mental strength, because imagine everyone on social media has been saying, Bernie Ecclestone's been saying, McLaren wants a world champion whose name is Lando Norris. But here is Oscar with a 30 plus points advantage, making sure he's outperforming his teammate, at vital points through the season.
I think, in my opinion, this is the last time Oscar Piastri plays the nice guy for the rest of the season. There's lots of points at stake, and one DNF can really swing things in Lando's favor as well. So I think this is the last time he's going to comply to such requests this season, at least.
Yeah, it's a very curious case, and the best way to solve the problem is to outqualify your teammate, do better, create a gap. It's evident that Baku is a place where other teams do come into contention, regardless of how many points they're dominating the season by. Think about 2017, think about 2018, 2019, 21 as well for Mercedes when Red Bull Racing started to come around. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're dominant. At Baku, things will switch around. So it's important more than ever to be better than your teammate here. And of course, tires one step softer. Hopefully for McLaren, this will play into their hands in what is a very, very long race, because that's when normally they are stronger. But we need to talk now about... Go ahead.
No, one second. Yeah, another question. I believe Oscar Piastri could have sealed his world championship much earlier than he may just do that, right? Because when you think of Silverstone, where he was, given that penalty, when you think of Hungary, where he was on the bad side of luck, when you think of Monza, where there was another team order to swap them, imagine the number of points that he's already lost to Lando Norris in the Constructors Championship, right? So Silverstone 7 points, Hungary 7 points, that's 14 points, and whatever number of 3 points that were there in the last race in Monza. So that's a 17 points swing already that could have happened in Oscar's favor if he was lucky enough. And the other thing also is the wave of luck that Lando was riding or has been riding with these lucky wins in Silverstone and then in Hungary. What if he didn't have those wins? Maybe he wouldn't have been as chirpy. Maybe he would have been under even more pressure. And we've seen how, when the pressure mounts, Lando is one of those drivers that struggle to perform. So maybe Oscar Piastri, when he sits back and actually considers the season as a whole, would have realized that just how many points he's lost to silly rules by the FIA and then these papaya rules that the McLaren has put out. And maybe he could have just, been further ahead in the Drivers' Championship. I don't know what you guys think about that.
No, absolutely, because even in Australia, he lost a bunch of points. If I'm not wrong, he finished P9, and he should have ideally finished P2. So that's a good chunk of, I don't know, more than 15
but at least Australia, I would say, was what I would call racing. You're leading the pack, you're chasing your teammate, there's suddenly downpour, both of y'all go off, and well, that's what just happens, right? And one of you is just worse off than the other. So that's at least down to racing. But a lot of these other factors, like Silverstone, when the FIA just puts a random penalty that he didn't even receive a warning for, or Hungary when the team decided, oh, but that's racing, you were on a 2-stopper and somebody won it on a 1-stop, and so on. So anyway, I just think Oscar could have or should be feeling that I should have just had a larger points gap to whoever is in second place than I do right now. But that's just my view.
Absolutely.
At the end, put your head down and deliver then. If these things are all peripheral, these are all khayali pulao, as we like to say in Hindi. These are all things that have happened that there's no point deliberating over if you're Oscar. For us, of course, it makes sense because we're telling you the broader story of the season so far. But if you're Oscar Piastri, you can only do one thing: do what you did last year, and things should be fine. It was a tremendous performance, and we're just hoping for a battle quite like that. But there's a lot happening in the midfield too. We need to update you about those stories. Uttara has very kindly pointed out, and this is something that I forgot, that Oliver Behrman is close to a race ban. He's on the edge of the penalty points. It's Oy Kambete at Oy Kambete on our social media channels who pointed that out to us. So thank you for mentioning that. I wasn't aware. And that's the last place I'd like to come to with my penalty points being close to 12. It's a risky place to get to.
I'll tell you what I would do if I was a midfield team owner, manager, principal. And this is what I would love Formula One to have as well. It's a constructors championship. That's where the
Yeah.
money's made. Basically, that's a team's championship. Like in cricket, if you have a pitch which is going to spin more, you play more spinners. Like in football, if you need to score more goals, you probably put some more attackers on the field. So can F1 teams also be given this room to say, just bring the best driver you think you can get to score your points at a particular circuit? So I'm pointing at Checo Perez, given how well he goes around Baku, more podiums than anyone else. And I think this is the only circuit he's even out qualified Max Verstappen at, right? And that's a large order as well. If I was a midfield team owner, I would just call Checo and say, Checo, just drive my car because points are anyway very elusive. Maybe Alpine should have done this with the Briatore because Checo's just able to score more points in Baku than any of the other current drivers on the grid. And this is probably one of those joker rules that F1 should have. I mean, I think this rule would have probably been better than doing reverse grids in the sprints, which I anyway think is more of a gimmick. Here you're saying, here's a package, here's the driver who can extract the most of that package at this particular circuit. Let's just put them in. Because the other example I can think of is, say, Sebastian Vettel at Singapore or Lance Stroll in the wet, particularly at Turkey. But if there are any other such examples where particular drivers in the past, I think, yeah, Fisichella at Monza and Spa, particularly the Force India package of the previous eras at against Spa and Monza. I think even Adrian Suttle's gone extremely well around Monza before. So some of these midfield drivers who we don't remember anymore, we should just bring them back and say, here's your favorite circuit. Just go and get us these points in whatever little car we've got there.
Would it be too dark to call upon Senna in Monaco or Schumacher in Magny-Cours or something like that?
Magnico, yeah.
Yeah. Will that be too much? Yeah, I mean, you could always play F1 Fantasy or something. Like, could always do that.
But seriously, I mean, if there are reverse grids being discussed, why not just say, here's 2 joker cards, you can have a driver change. I mean, I know this is not going to happen. Drivers have to fit in, teams have to fit in, blah, 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 blah. And that's where F1 is too technical. But I think this is a rule that we should pitch to Stefano.
Who would fit in, though, realistically? Like, who from the available driver pool, or by available, I mean alive, would genuinely be fixing
I just said,
it?
Fisichella, if you put him in Spa or Monza, there's Kimi Raikkonen. He's gone well around certain circuits than the others. There's, like Checo Perez.
Or you could just cut the chatter and just put Fernando Alonso in your car. He's everything. He's the past, the present, and the future. And he's great at every car. And he's the ultimate wild card. He is the ultimate wild card.
This is not the F1 movie. Someone comes back to the sport 30 years later without a super license. One of the most glaring mistakes from the movie. All of these things count. No one's going to come back.
Hey, combat. Anything for combat, right?
Anything. C for combat. C for combat.
All right. Last couple of stories to touch upon. Carlos Sainz, his appeal has been successful. But what penalty has gotten overturned now? Like, what's happening here, guys?
His appeal got successful for what happened with him and Liam Lawson in Sunfoot. Okay. But in the last 2 races, Carlos Sainz has had on-track racing incidents 2 times, 2 races back-to-back. Sunfoot, Lawson. Monza was who was it? With Oliver Behrman. Oliver Behrman. And I believe this is, in the last 8 years that Carlos Sainz has raced here, he has always been outqualified by a teammate. So I'm
Oh,
waiting to see
wow.
what Carlos Sainz is able to do, turn around his fortunes of the season and at the circuit. So if you're that midfield team boss listening in, thinking of getting a specialist driver for yourself at Baku, it cannot be Carlos Sainz.
Exactly. And the last story to talk about is the battle going on in the midfield. Point standings: Aston Martin are sixth at 62. Racing Bulls are just 1 point behind them in P7. There could be a turnaround. And behind them is Kick Sauber in eighth. They are only 6 points behind Racing Bulls and seven behind Aston Martin. There's real closeness in that midfield. And if Haas can somehow get a double points finish as well, they could find themselves elevated up from P9 potentially up to P6 because there's barely anything in that gap. So watch out for that. And also 20 points between Ferrari and Mercedes in the battle for second in the Constructors World Championship. That is going to be very, very interesting too. Right, predictions, guys. Time to close this episode off. I am going for a Max Verstappen win. I have to. I've laid out all the arguments. Is anyone going to be daring enough to say that Charles Leclerc converts his fifth pole in Baku to his first win in Baku? Who's going to say that?
Me.
For sure.
I'm feeling bold, so I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc.
Ah, love that.
I think I'm going to go with Oscar Piastri. He's going to, he's going to put all that pressure in and pull off that magic in Baku. He's going to win, but I get a feeling he's not going to be the driver on pole position. Pole is between Leclerc and Verstappen. I think that's where it's going to go.
Amazing.
None of us see Lando Norris winning yet again. Okay.
Now, pressure's on
unless McLaren make him win. I'm not going to expand on that.
Interesting. Well, we'd love to know your opinions, guys. I mean, I've been silly. I've not opened up our comments so far, but we've had so many people interacting with us. Sadhna, Sarika, Bharat, Feyanshu's here as always. Love the support, guys. And I think because you guys have put in such fun comments, I think we need to take at least one of them before we end, and that is Sarika's predictions. She says Max Verstappen on pole, Williams somewhere in the points, Oscar Piastri win. But here's the fun part, guys. Lando Norris DNFs.
Oh. My goodness, that means McLaren has to balance off Oscar by 2 DNFs in the next 7 races. Okay, let's see. Gotta be fair, right? But there was somebody who also said, right, is Baku more favorite for midfielders? I think Baku's also got lots of, for the front running teams. I think Baku's had a lot of midfielders show up on the podium. Checo Perez has done that at Racing Point, Force India. There was Sebastian Vettel at Aston Martin. There was Lance Stroll with the Williams in one of the first races as well. So lots of midfield scoring that could happen this random race weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, Baku, I think the pole sitters won only on 2 occasions. The last time the pole sitter won was back in 2019. We've had an equal number of drivers winning from off the front row than when they've started from the front row. So 4 each. Daniel Ricciardo's won this race from P10.
Wow.
And if I remember correctly, 6 of the 8 races that we've had in Baku have seen a driver from outside the top 4 finish on the podium. So there's lots that can happen. Please don't go strictly based on what you see in qualifying and what you see from the front 2 rows.
Yeah, there is a lot. Sadhna says Lance Stroll spins, Alonso pole, Lewis Hamilton podium.
Yeah, I'll take that.
That is the bombshell to end this episode on. If this happens, we on the inside line, we need to, what do we need to do?
Most improbable prediction, but okay. Fernando on pole. Okay.
I think we should all wear red that day. And we should apologize. Green. It's perfect. Okay. We're running short of time, but last question. Can Max still win the World Drivers' Championship? I mean, if Lando DNFs in Baku and then Oscar is due 2 DNFs, I suppose there's
the McLarens have to take each other out for that. To get him any closer. But yeah, very, very, I mean, I'd love to see him have a go at it. It'll shock the whole world of Formula One. The billion fans that, we spoke of, F1 is going to soon have. Check out that short on YouTube and the reel on Instagram. But I think that we will accelerate to 1 billion fans faster if Max actually makes a late season, almost no charge to the Drivers' Championship title in 2025.
Yeah,
See, it's all about belief. It's all about belief. Vettel had belief, so he won the last 9 races of 2013. Mattia Binotto also had belief, saying that they would win the last 10 races of 2022 or 2023. Which season
22.
was it? 22. So that didn't happen. So it's ultimately belief and how you translate that belief on track.
या श्रद्धा होगी तो फिर आप लाल बाग
Shraddha.
के राजा के लिए 8 घंटा भी लाइन में रुक सकते हो बट
Bilkul.
it just
There's a
depends on.
lot of our audience outside of India. You have to translate that. Rude from the Netherlands said, I love your podcast. I love what you guys are doing, but please keep the content relevant for a global audience. Somil, you're due an explanation and a translation.
Basically, the Lal Bagh Raja is Mumbai's greatest Ganpati festival. Ganpati is a lord that we all believe in, and getting to visit the Lal Bagh Raja, you need to stand in a line, often for more than 6 to 8 hours, just to get a glimpse of the Lord's sculpture. And people say, "Oh, we want to do it because we believe a lot in the Lord, and so we will do it." And then that's what it's all down to. How much do you believe in the Lord Himself, so that you would like to stand in a line for that long? I do, but I don't believe enough to stand in the line for 8 hours being squished to death. So yeah,
My mom is
that's
going to be happy we spoke about Ganpati on the F1 stream. But anyway, time to
yeah.
call it quits.
Time to call it
No,
quits.
last question to Samuel. Would you stand in a line for 8 hours if that gave you the opportunity to spend 5 minutes with Carlos Sainz? Would
No,
you
I
do
still
that then?
wouldn't.
You
I
still
still
wouldn't.
wouldn't.
He's
Time is
some.
time is
This
all
is
the
where
essence.
Somil doesn't know what he's talking about.
No,
He
I'm
would
fine.
stand.
Guys, on the
You
Inside Line
you
F1
have taken
podcast.
an 8-hour flight to go and watch a Formula E race in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, see,
So
that's still
that's
better
akin.
than standing in a line with sweat, being squished, not having food, not having a washroom nearby.
I'm surprised you
That's
I,
not
said no.
what
You wouldn't
that's
do
not
it.
what
You wouldn't do it.
Sundaram said. Sundaram said stand in a line with 5G on your phone, maybe live stream with all of us of how it is to stand in a line. There is
no,
restrooms available, fan zones available, and then you go and you meet Carlos Sainz.
no,
For
I've been spoiled.
minutes. No.
I've been spoiled.
Okay.
No, luckily here on the inside line and the people who we work with, we tend to get really good drivers and really good paddock personalities while we can sit down in our room and interview them. So this is
Fair enough.
subtle flex. Karun Chandok on the latest episode of Fan Code's Gearbox podcast. We got to discuss Carlos Sainz with him. I asked him a simple question: Carlos Sainz underperforming, unlucky, or underappreciated? What's the main lookout? So watch out for that. But more importantly, watch out for our short stuff. We've put out lots of really cool short form content on the Inside Line. A magazine show is coming out shortly too. We will of course be streaming during the weekend and of course after the race here as well. And there will be live updates and lots of content coming in on Instagram. So that is the fun stuff you need to be checking out. So stay tuned. Subscribe to the podcast, share it with all your friends and family members who would love Formula One. And as I like to say to my friends, let us go. Yeah, you need to let us go now. It's been a long episode. We will catch you in a little bit. Take care, guys.